everybody who's here, let us all stand up for the singing of the AU anthem and the national anthem of the Republic. It will be led by the Ionian Orchestra. Thank you very much. You may be seated. I'd like to welcome everyone who's here and acknowledge the Nene family, the children, the sister, the broader family, the Premier of Gauteng, the former President of the Republic, His Excellency Honorable Thabo Mbeki, and Mrs. Nene, former First Lady, members of the National Executive Committee who are here, and the Alliance, and former members of the National Executive Committee, ministers and deputy ministers here present, members of Parliament, members of provincial legislatures, members of Executive Council, councillors, the President of UCLG, members of the Diplomatic Corps, former ambassadors and high commissioners, the hosting branch, Ward 35, Jabavu branch, the hosting zone, Zone 9, fellow mourners, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, good morning. We are here to celebrate the life well lived, a life of a father, a brother, a leader, a lover, a diplomat par excellence, a struggle icon, clever fankasi, a friend, a peacemaker and a peace lover. What can I say? We're here to celebrate the life well lived of Bra George, the Ambassador Sipho George Dugang Nene. Without much waste of time, I would like to ask the Methodist choir if they are here. I'm not sure if they are here for a music interlude. If not, I will then ask the Ionian Orchestra to take us through. Let's stand up and celebrate this life. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I would now call upon Reverend Nomsan Nomkolo of the Methodist Church, White City Circuit.
Are rapeleng. Modimo rara, modimo mora, modimo moya, o boitshepo. Rara wa morena wa rona Jesu Kriste, modimo o matla ohle, o saleng o ntse o le teng pele ga dithaba le maralla di ba teng. O ntse o le modimo le letsatsing la kajeno. o tla dula o le Modimo le mohlang metheo ya lefatshe e fedisitswe. O re tshepisitse Modimo wa rona hore lehodimo le lokile, re o phomola teng bohloko bo ya fela, o ba re thaba moreneng. Re go leboga Modimo wa rona ka bophelo ba mohlanka wa gago o kileng wa bokadima lelapa la Nene ntate a matla ohle. Re go leboga ka tiro o kileng wa mo fa yona lefatsheng la ba buang, wa mo tsamaisa Modimo matla ohle, wa mo fedisa makhubu le ntsukuzi ezimnyama. Re go leboga ke gona Modimo wa rona re neeletsa moya wa gagwe matsogong a hao ka tshepo le ka tumelo e tletseng ya gore bao ba shwela moreneng ba tla tsoga ka kganyeng le kgalalelong. Modimo matla ohle ke ye family sena tla sa lehodimo, re neeletsa matsogong a gago Modimo ya bonang, Modimo ya utlwang, Modimo o theogang, wena o fitlhelele bohlokong ba dipelo tsa rona. Modimo re tshepisang re tla phomola dikeledi mahlong a ba utlwileng bohloko bao ka nako e Modimo matla ohle re le family, re le leloko, re le ditsala, re le di-neighbors, re le mokgatlo wa ANC, re le lefatshe la South Africa, la Africa le lefatshe ka bophara, re go bitsang ka nako ya tlalelo ya rona e kgolo gore theoga Modimo wa rona. Re tla Modimo wa rona, re tla mo go wena re sa tshwara sepe ka matsogo a rona. We come in faith, we come believing things not seen and assured of the things we are hoping for. We know, Lord Jesus, that you have promised us that whenever we ask for whatever we need in your name, in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, we will receive it. And we claim it for ourselves, we claim it for our children, and we claim it for the generations to come. All of these things we claim in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. Igama lakho ubukumkani bakho mabufike intando yakho mayenziwe emhlabeni nje ngokuba isenziwa ezulwini ma usiphe namhlanje isonka sethu semihla ngemihla usikhonele izono zethu nje ngokuba nathi sibaxolela abo basonayo thina ongasingeni si ekuhelweni sisindise enkohlakalweni ngokuba ubukumkani kubo bakhona amandla engawakhono bongcwalisa obo bakho kude kube ngunaphakade. Dumiso malbeko koise nakuye unyanana uye omo ya oyitweleje ngokuba kunjalo ngase uqalekeni kunjalo kunje kuya omana kubanjalo Psalm 90. Psalm 90, the eternity of God and man's frailty. Lord, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hast formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Thou turnest man to destruction and sayest, return, ye children of humans. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but yesterday, when it is past, and as a watch in the night. Thou carriest them away as with flood, they are as asleep. In the morning they are like grass which groweth up. In the morning it flourisheth and groweth. In the evening it cuts down and withereth. For we are consumed by thine anger, and thy wrath are we troubled. Thou hast set our iniquities before thee, our secret sins in the light of thy countenance. For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. The days of our years are 80 years and 10. And if by reason of strength there are 80 years, yet in thy strength labor and sorrow, for it soon cut off, and we fly away. Who knoweth the power of thine anger, even according to thy fear, so is thy wrath. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Return, O Lord. How long? And let it repent thee concerning thy servants. O satisfy us early with thy mercy, and we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Make our glad according to the days wherein thou hast afflicted us, and in the years wherein we have seen evil. Let thy work appear unto thy servant, and thy glory unto their children. And let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish thou the work of our hands upon us. Yea, the work of our hands establish thou upon us. Oh, dumiso malbe koko ise na.
Thank you very much, Mfundisi uNomsana Mqolo. Can we have the Methodist choir once again give us an item, musical item? Nomkolo will do the same one. Nomkolo will do this. Like a tissue. Let me write. Storia.
Mandla.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are indeed celebrating the life of somebody who loved life. I want to acknowledge the presence of our former president, His Excellency Kgalema Motlanthe and Mrs. Gugu, who are here with us, also members of the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC, and also members of the Regional Executive Committee who are here. I also want to correct that the Reverend who gave us an opening prayer is actually Reverend Stonasi Tisho, not to Reverend Nomsa Nomkolo. No, Reverend Nomkolo will come later. Sorry about that. Would now call upon, we'll have a tribute on behalf of the Nene family. It will be delivered by Ubabu Mandla Ramsey Nyembe. Babu Nyembe.
Mphathi wohlelo nezikhulu zakithi zonke ikhona la ngoba mangizisho ngizobuye ngibashiya abanye eceleni. Ama comrades labo bonke abakhona la ngiyanibingelela. Usipho Mlambanizo kuthiwa ngwakanyembe mina. Sahlangana nabakwanene ngokuthi ngangifuna indawo yesikolo. Ngahlala nogogo eTrecht. Kwasokuthi emva kwalokho ke ngase ngibuye ngihlala naye ubaba emadadeni sevula isitolo. The parents of Sipho are Mr. A.B. and Evelyn Nene. They both originally come from Natal, though Sipho inkaba yakhe nisilaGoli. He was born here, but the parents were originally from Natal, ubaba from Utrecht, umama from Tannhauser. Boka Sipho bebe bathathu. Usisi Bibi, the eldest, bese kuba uSipho noThumbu uNtongo. I'm happy to say very strong now. At one stage, I think she was very distraught. Yeah. The first thing that I want to mention is to express the family gratitude to the ANC and other organizers to be accommodated within this week. We realized that it was a very tight schedule for the ANC, but there were some wishes from the family and that they wanted to have everything finalized this week, and fortunately, that happened, and we're very grateful for that as a family. Secondly, I want to thank the Department of Foreign Affairs. Yesterday, there was a memorial service in Pretoria, where actually I learned quite a number of things about Sipho, even those things that I didn't know about him. That was very, very pleasing. To know the work that he has done within the community. Even the friends of Sipho who did mostly the organizing. I think I must mention that when I came here on Wednesday and I found Ospio Nyanda very busy organizing the programs, and the other people there. We are saying very, very, very thank you for that. Coming to Sipho as a person, I think most of the people know Sipho as a very simple person. What I've noticed with him that he was not a big talker, but he was a doer most of the time. He was a very attentive listener because he could query you on some of the things which you said when perhaps they were discussing, and very analytic in whatever he said. Usipho-ke, I think I got used to him when he was at the University of Zululand. He used to go past Matadeni where his father was living, Beno, sister wakhe untongo, and then we sat and have some discussion with them. I must say that he never informed any person when he left, and Ubaba was a bit, I don't know what to say, but later, when we heard that he's that side doing some job for the country, he was happy, but unfortunately, he died while he was abroad, Usipho. He missed the death of his father. That was a big sore to him, but when he came back, he did the customary thing. He came home and sahamba sayophosa itshe ethuneni likababa. I must say that on his return, Usipho compensated, I must use that word, for the time he was absent, because whenever there was anything eyenzekayo le eNatali ekhaya, he used to come. I must mention that when he came over that side, he never left his two sisters. The elder sister, Ubibi Beno Dongo. Unfortunately, the elder sister also passed on last year. He didn't only come to attend, but he made a lot of contributions whenever it was necessary. Le emdenini wasekhaya eNewcastle nakweminye imdeni wakhona, because most of the family are that side. Angithi-ke Dong, ngiyajabula dadewethu ngibona usuqinile. You continue be like that. Let's accept that Sipho is gone. That Sipho is gone. Perhaps other people would wonder what happened to Sipho. I think I must mention that because there will be many stories coming around. Usipho, I think, wama endleleni wathi uyaphuma, and then he fell and hurt his back. Apparently, he had a brain hemorrhage at that time. From the records, it appears that he was not falling for the first time when the doctors checked. It was something that might have happened before. I want people to be clear about that. He was taken to hospital immediately and transferred to the military hospital in Pretoria when they realized that it was above them. Let me say, I must mention that because I've had many stories going around. That is the real thing that happened. He fell and hurt his back, and then there was a brain hemorrhage, which eventually led to his death. Ezinganeni zikaSipho ngithi asibone umsebenzi wakhe konke asekwenzile. I must also thank the support from the community and other friends who came during this bereavement period. We, as a family, say thank you very much. Sithi ke hamba kahle sithenjwa Madlokovu usikhonzele phambili. Bye.
Thank you very much, Babu Nyembe, to give us umlando ukuthi usipho ungubani. The George Nene that we knew later in his life, who he was from the beginning, and also setting the record straight. Thank you very much for that. We will now call the regional chairperson of the African National Congress in Johannesburg, Comrade Paxtau, and I'll request the REC and who are here and zonal leadership to come and form a guard of honor during that time. Comrade Paxtau. Unene bega khona emzabalazweni. Unene bega khona emzabalazweni. 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 Bebe kuphi laba bantu. Emzabalazweni. Bebe kuphi laba bantu. Emzabalazweni. Emzabalazweni.
Amandla. Amandla. Thank you very much, Program Director. Allow me to acknowledge in the first instance our ministers of religion, the Nene family, Your Excellencies, the former presidents of the Republic, President Thabo Mbeki, President Kgalema Motlanthe, Mbeki, Motlanthe, allow me to also acknowledge ministers of government, the leadership of the African National Congress, members of the diplomatic corps, the leadership of the African National Congress, fellow mourners. Of course, with the limited time one has been allocated, it would be difficult to raise all the issues that one would have wanted to raise. Safe to acknowledge the role and responsibility of the late Ambassador Nene in providing leadership and guidance to us as the African National Congress in the Greater Johannesburg region, and indeed to the work that we do both in the sector of local government, but also in the international sphere in which the role of local government is becoming more prominent. This month of April arguably provides us with a platform to honor both our fallen martyrs like comrades Kalushi and Chris, in this respect, I'm talking about the late Chris Hani and Kalushi Mahlangu, who passed away years ago in April. As a representative of the ANC in the Johannesburg region, I wish to state up front that Bra George was a bottomless human well for which many in my generation went to seeking thoroughly thought through counsel. We went to him since we trusted and relied upon him to offer critical advice on international relations and in governance praxis. His vast experience and know-how could be relied upon, especially for many of us who were neophytes in foreign relations protocols and policies. Fortunately, given the notable man he was prepared to give effortlessly and share his knowledge selflessly. Whenever I thought of Bra George, for me, he personified the maxim, if you are good at something, you might tell everyone. But when you are great at something, they will tell you. To me, his selflessness and humility combined naturally with his greatness in his chosen profession. Of course, I would be remiss if I do not, given the limited time, say something about his role as an eminent career diplomat, particularly in positioning South Africa in bilateral and multilateral bodies and engagements. It is his role in international relations which enabled us, as both the City of Johannesburg and the South African Local Government Association, to approach him and his other colleagues, like Ambassador Welile Nhlapo, to seek his trusted guidance in the ever-increasing role of organized local government and in the implementation of the Global Development Agenda. Program Director will certainly feel his loss given the state where we are as a country in renewing our mandate to our people. As you know, in any revolution there are ebbs and flows, and indeed the setbacks of 2016 represented a significant low. This painful low in the evolution of our movement is significant since it highlighted first our people's concerns about the direction of our glorious movement, and second, it was a setback in advancing our agenda of broader social transformation. Fortunately, the ANC's resurgence recently has empowered and entrusted this movement to assume or resume its quintessential role as a humble and patient leader of our society. I emphasize the word patient leader of society in reference to the ANC, since I remember these wise words of the late Professor Kositsile when he said, "Blessed are the dehumanized, for they have nothing to lose but their patience." There can be no equivocation, ladies and gentlemen, that the post-1994 dispensation is about the emancipation of black people in general and Africans in particular, amongst others, to overcome the bigotry that we've experienced as a country and indeed reversing the ills of the past. I say this ever mindful of the Jeremiah events unfolding in the Middle East, where we watch anxiously to see a replay of the 1961 Bay of Pigs scenario in Syria in 2018 between the US and Russia. Of course, others would say such a military and diplomatic standoff in the Middle East signifies something like a Thucydides trap, whereby war and conflict looks possible because a reigning superpower feels threatened by other emerging and resurgent superpowers or powerful regional blocs. Nevertheless, this period, as the ANC offers us a great opportunity to assume our rightful place and position in the country, in the continent, and in the globe. We dare not fail, for we understand all too well what the results could be. In conclusion, allow me to also extend respectful regards to Bra George for his mentorship and his leadership. Allow me to also extend condolences on behalf of my wife, Phyllis Siwe, to Bra George and the Nene family, since she grew up under his diligent tutelage. Fellow mourners, Bra George leaves us at a time that is difficult for us as a movement and as a people. The losses we're experiencing in these days are indeed difficult losses to accommodate as a society. I can only imagine what the family goes through, and indeed I can only imagine what those who are very close to him are feeling right now, amongst which would be his friends, his colleagues, his comrades, and those who were indeed extremely close to him. In this regard, condolences also to Ambassador Willie Lentlapo, General Retired Spiwe Nyanda, for their loss is not only a loss of a comrade, but somebody with whom they spent countless hours. I thank you very much.
Thanks, Comrade Parks. As has already been indicated, one of Ambassador Nene's greatest passions was the practice of diplomacy. So we will invite a colleague of his, Ambassador Nozipho January Bardil, to come up now to make a few words. In the interim, as she is coming up, can I also just indicate that these two doors on the left, if you go through them, they will lead you to the bathrooms. Secondly, just to say for the people who are standing, if they prefer to sit down, there's an overflow area outside. And finally, can I just request everybody to put their cell phones on silence, please? Thank you. Ambassador Bardil. After Ambassador Bardil will be inviting, we'll get a tribute from Sipho Hostix Mabuse.
Thank you, Program Director. May I also acknowledge, as my colleague Parks Manka Sana said earlier on, Parks Tau, I beg your pardon. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not used to speaking. May I acknowledge the presidents of South Africa, the former presidents, and I think in protocol we are supposed to say presidents and not former. President Mbeki and Motlanthe and Mrs. Mbeki and Mrs. Motlanthe. And also all the former ministers and ministers who are currently here. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, Dean and Ambassador Mpoko, distinguished guests, and also take the opportunity particularly recognize the partners and the women in Ambassador Nene's wife. both Nomvume and Pumla, and his daughters and children. It was with deep sorrow and a sense of loss that we've heard of the passing of our dear comrade and colleague and friend, Ambassador Nene, last week on Friday. I think Ambassador Nene passed away at a time in a context in our country where death almost became a symbol of renewal, and that this is the time that we need to do something to make South Africa the place that we all wanted it to be, and that is the context in which his passing happened. It also happened at a time when we lost the likes of Bra Hugh, the likes of Bra Willie Khositsile, the likes of Stanley Tlakula, and of course Mama Winnie, and yesterday, the day before, Ambassador Zola Skweyiya. All of these men and women were of substance, who were totally devoted to South Africa and this country, and who lived for its future. George was devoted to his life and work, to the ANC, and he served the movement and the government after 1994 with passion and a deep, deep sense of commitment, responsibility, and professionalism. His sterling performance as our High Commissioner in Nigeria and as South Africa's representative to the United Nations in Geneva gave him the reputation of being a mature and seasoned, respected diplomat among his peers. On his return home, he continued to serve the Department of International Relations and Cooperation as Deputy Director General of Multilateral Politics until his retirement. George loved international relations, and even as he understood that his time had expired at DIRCO, he continued to serve the department and initiated the birth of the Association of Former Ambassadors, High Commissioners, and Chief Representatives, an organization for which he had advocated with a deep sense of belief that those who had given diplomatic service had the responsibility and the duty to share their experiences and learnings with the nation and up-and-coming young international civil servants. It was a time during foreign affairs when we all understood what it meant to be representatives abroad. And for this, we have to pay tribute for the work done by President Mbeki, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, our very own Director General, Mr. Nsaluba, Dr. Nsaluba, and all the colleagues who really gave their lives, Ambassador Nhlapo, Ambassador Aziz Pahad, Ambassador Lindiwe Mabuza, Ambassador Sisulu, Ambassador Kochwe, and many others who took South Africa to the world and really made it a country to be reckoned with. I first got to know George in a professional capacity, first indirectly as one of our most outstanding and reputable ambassadors when he was serving in Nigeria, and more directly in 2001 when we were both in missions in Switzerland. He was our representative at the United Nations in Geneva, as I said, and I was ambassador in Bern, the capital, doing bilateral diplomacy. And on our return home in 2005, we worked for the Department of Foreign Affairs, and that's what it was called, as Deputy Directors General. He was responsible for multilateral politics, and I was responsible for the human resource function and running the Foreign Service Institute, where we prepared our diplomats for representation abroad. And it was in Switzerland where we became friends through service, and where I got to know better, not his professional side, but also George the man, George the father, and George the husband. A man who was both complex and simple, uncomplicated, very humble, but with a personality that was sometimes misunderstood as standoffish and dismissive. But George had a razor-sharp mind and didn't suffer fools gladly. And like many of the colleagues that I mentioned earlier in the Department of Foreign Affairs in those days, when the department was really punching above what it was expected to. And all of them were mentors and teachers for the diplomats that followed in their footsteps. George was a confident, diligent, passionate, ethical, professional, and very hardworking leader and public servant and a diplomat. And I want to particularly focus on his ethical behavior, his ethical example. Because for me, ethics is when you do the right thing when nobody is looking. And he always did the right thing. He absolutely loved multilateral politics. He was a natural diplomat who was able to develop long-term personal and instrumental relationships with people of all nationalities and all races and all classes. But he was also a teacher, a mentor, who loved to develop the younger generation of diplomats and guide them to become the profession and the professional that he was. Ambassador never complained about anything, even when times were hard. And for him, the hardest time was when he recently felt he couldn't realize his most treasured dream of continuing to develop the Association of Former Ambassadors at DIRCO, for reasons that cannot always be explained. He gave the project all that he had, his big heart and his commitment, and passed on with an unfulfilled dream. So as I conclude, and as I said yesterday at his memorial service at DIRCO, it is our duty to keep Ambassador's dream alive, to keep his legacy, and continue to mobilize the vast human resources that our Foreign Affairs and now DIRCO department has developed over the years. It would be a great tragedy if we did not do this and kept Ambassador's spirit, professionalism, love for country, love for comrades, love for party, and love for the world alive. I think that as he goes down and goes to rest with all the other comrades who have gone, we salute him with dignity and with a hope that future ambassadors and future civil servants, as we develop our country into the next decade or 100 years, that we remember the likes of Ambassador Nene, and to thank his family for having shared his life with all of us, and to thank all of you who made him the person that he became. Enkosi kakhulu, hamba ngoxolo umkhonto. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Bardil, and thanks to Hot 6. I think those of us who know Ambassador Nene will know that in the concentric circles of friendships that we establish in the course of our journeys through life, there are people who really remained in the inner core of Ambassador Nene's friends. And I think the next two speakers that we would have now belong to that group. So I will start with inviting Ambassador Welile Tlapo, who will then immediately be followed by retired General Siphiwe Nyanda. Ambassador Tlapo.
Thank you, DG. I say so because you're the only DG I know. I think, given time constraints and the fact that yesterday we also had the opportunity to speak about George, and to avoid the repetition, I've decided that I'm just going to say a few words on some of the things that I might have left out yesterday. Because most of the information that I might want to impart is there in the obituary. So again, because I think the program directors have done a good job in terms of acknowledging those who had to be acknowledged, I'll choose not to take that path. And I'm not going to commit a crime that we always decried with George, of doing what some people were saying South Africans are lazy when it comes to protocol. And we just say all protocol observed, because there's no such a thing. You either observe protocol or you don't. Simple as all that. Having said that, let me say that I'm happy that we're at this school, because that's where I met George Nene for the first time in 1967, when we were doing our matric here. So I've known him for that long. We're not necessarily in the same class, but we'd converge when it is the Zulu period. Now, of course, I found myself with them in that Zulu class, and I always told them that, according to my reference book, my tribe is officially Swazi and Sotho, and therefore I'm a colored. So I knew George from that class, and we became friends until we met again at the University of Zululand, where I had the honor of sharing a room with him. And you can imagine what used to happen there. I'll leave it to your imagination, because we're young. And we behaved like young people. And of course, we started getting very active in politics, the South African Students Organization. When Steve Biko came to launch the branch of SASO at the University of Zululand, we became some of the most active people in that SASO, led, of course, by then SRC President Mtuliga Shesa. And then, of course, we also had, which was something quite rare, from the science faculty. They're not very much known to have an interest in politics. But of course, we then had 3 people that I can immediately remember. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Msibit Mangena, and Spiwe Nyanda, who I unfortunately met for the first time in 1967. And it has been hell. But that's where we come from with George. But let me just highlight a few things about George that we did together. But let me also remind you, because I've heard since the passing of George and Mamwini and again Zola Square, that we seem to think that Oliver Tambo is still alive. Because he also passed away on the 24th of April 1993. So April is that typical month where we have to recall and remind ourselves about those who made us who we are. I indicated yesterday that even at the time of our retirement, there's a number of things that we continue to do. But before that, let me tell you one thing about the sensitivities of George and his caring. When he realized that we were about to reach retirement, and there was a law that was passed in Parliament about recognizing the conditions of service of those particularly who were in MK, George rounded up all those diplomats, ambassadors and former ambassadors, and ensured that they fill in the forms. It was during a Heads of Missions conference. And when I was sitting with him looking at whether there's nobody who has been missed out, I discovered that his name was not there. And I reminded him that he has also to fill in a form. But because his mind was focused on the rest, he actually even forgot himself. But George continued to do a lot of work during his time when he was in service. I just want to mention one thing which people might not know. You know, the US has got only 3 countries that they consult with and discuss human rights questions. So when George was doing his work as a DDG for multilateral, at the time when I was ambassador in the US, he came because we had to have this bilateral. So we sat with the US delegation, went through during tea time. So I said to George, you know, George, we seem to agree on everything here. What do you think we should do for the next item? He said, let's tell them to go back to the Human Rights Council. And we took them on that one. And in the end, gladly, they took that decision and went back to the Human Rights Council. Because the case we made them feel that they will be irresponsible not to do so. In just now in the later years, George, which is something that he has not finished and fulfilled, was supposed to go again and have a briefing with the portfolio committee on conditions of service for diplomats that are posted abroad, because there has to be an adjustment to that. And as a chairperson of the association, he was asked to take the portfolio committee through. There was supposed to be a follow-up meeting, which he was preparing for. It was going to take place here in Pretoria, where all of us would have been present. That's a task that has not been finished. But let me say the good news is that George almost completed writing about his life. All that was left out is some editing that needed to be done. We saw the manuscript is there. Next week, we're supposed to go and talk to some people to help us through in the editing of the work that we've been doing about our books that we thought we were going to publish. And his target was his birthday, that if we could do it by the 12th of June, we would have been very happy. Of course, we'll see what can happen. Let me just end up by saying that I'm actually disappointed in George, because he wasted my time. I don't know how many times we started planning for a joint birthday in June, because both of us will just be only 70 years young. So we decided on a joint birthday between mine, which falls in May, and his, so that we can be able to bring all our friends together and comrades so that we can celebrate with them and not compete to get them to our individual birthdays. But then he decided that he wants to celebrate it maybe with Cheki and Tebogo and others. Because Tebogo did the same thing to me. When we had almost finalized our 50th birthdays, he decided to leave. Papi Mloto did the same. For my 80th and 90th, I go it alone. Thank you.
Amandla. I had to cut him short before he said other things about me. Program director, I'm going to make an acknowledgements because I have not prepared any speech. Those acknowledgements will go towards what I want to say. Family, the children, the sister of faith, close relatives, loved ones, the partners that George Nene had, both official and non-official. Dignitaries from the African National Congress, members of the NEC, former presidents, or they said presidents according to protocol, and first ladies, Zanele and Kuku. DGs present here, generals, I've seen several. Ministers, former ministers, members of the diplomatic corps. I just want to recognize also Isitwalandwe, Babu Mlangeni, And also one person that I would like really to have to stand, who flew from Sierra Leone, who was a great friend of George and became a friend of ours as well, Ambassador Joe Blair. Can you please rise? Thanks. Thank you. Other important guests, a community from Swaziland, there are many who came here, from the alumni of the University of Zululand. I'm not an alumni of the University of Zululand. They chased me away in the first year, second year of my attendance there. And the reason why I was chased away, I did relate yesterday. I was with Ambassador Nhlapo, George Nene, and Reggie Nyanda, and there was a protest at the school about smelly cups, teacups, and because I was doing science, they were doing arts, I borrowed them the dividers and we pierced these cups. And I was the only one who was recognized on account of my handsomeness. Friends, comrades, there's so much relationship between me and George. I knew him more than 50 years ago, and we had so much in common. We struck an instant friendship with so much in common. Somebody, I think it was Ambassador Badil, who said that he was a complex person, but very bright. The reason for that I attribute to what I said yesterday was an unfortunate star, which he is, and I also belong to, and some people, famous people that I know, Gemini, split personalities. And of course, he was outwardly very calm, very soft, very kind outwardly, but inside, not so much. I was robust, I am robust and seemingly rough on the edges, but inside, very kind. No, I haven't acknowledged the choir here. It's not a choir, it's an orchestra. Now, George has got a history with this orchestra. We all have a history with this orchestra. George at university, there were two Georges who were friends with us. One used to be called George before, the other one was called George after. George, Nene was called George after because he was slim. The other one was called George before because he was fat. And he used to sing for this orchestra. And the conductor of this orchestra, Linda Mngoma, is the son of the founder of this Ionian orchestra, who is also the father of Sibongile Khumalo. So they offered them to participate here, and we gladly agreed because of this association. I have many encounters with Dikgang. We traveled many journeys together, underground, university in Swaziland, and the community of Swaziland is here. But it is as a friend, really, that I remember George. As I said, we clicked from the word go, and we were friends throughout our lives. And because I'm told that we have very little time, and other people have spoken about his life. I worked with him in Swaziland. He was one of the first commanders of the Special Operations Division when it was formed, before Obadi Kasara Mwengwa and before the others who took part there. And at one point, because he had gotten to Swaziland as a teacher and he was working overboard, as he was part of the underground. When he was exposed as part of the underground, he had to leave for Lusaka and then got into diplomacy at DIP and so on. But it is as a friend that I recall him, and in fact I won't even talk because all these things I relate is because he was my friend. Now, you know, he was a friend to the extent that when in fact I'm asked by people recently whether I do have friends, because just like George, we are introverts, what is funny, because introverts and especially as you grow older, you gravitate more towards family and less towards friends. So, and people ask you, do you have friends? Because you're always at home, always with your children, always with a few circle of your brothers, etc. And I say, yes, I don't have any friends. My friends are my family. And they say, George? I said, no, George is part of my family. And here, to attest to that, almost everyone of my family is attending this funeral. Yesterday, people came from Durban, from KZN, all over KZN, from all over the country, who are my friends, who know George, and who know my friendship towards George. And every time we had anything at my place, very few times was George not there, because he was part of my family. So as I pass my words of condolences to the family who are grieving today, I want to say that your grief is not yours only. My family, to which George also belonged, grieves. My friends, the friends that I have from childhood, most of them are here, because when George came to my township to visit me, those days there were no cell phones. People would just walk across rivers. Of course, there were bridges then, those rivers, to a township, not knowing whether somebody is there or not. And then sometimes find that I am not there. And those friends of mine would escort George back to White City through dangerous Mfulo South. So I want to say to family that the passing of George has affected me very, very much, and affected many of his comrades, many of his friends, and take solace in the fact that George was able to come back to bury his father, and he saw you grow up to this stage. And I want to thank the congregation for allowing me the space to say farewell to my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Ambassador Nhlapo and General Nyanda. We were looking for Ambassador Mpoko. Is Ambassador Mpoko here? In any event, in the absence of Ambassador Mpoko, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Algeria, could you deliver a few words? Thank you. After the contribution by the Ambassador of Algeria, we will have just two musical items from the Morris Isaacson High School Choir. We'll do that immediately after the ambassador.
Thank you, Program Director. I would like to salute all the participants to this gathering. First of all, I would like to extend our heartfelt condolences on behalf of the diplomatic corps to the family of the late Ambassador George Nene, to all his comrades, his friends, and the institution to whom he belonged during his very rich career in struggle and also in professional life. What to say about my friend, my brother, my comrade, George Nene? I think it is difficult to add to what had been said by people who knew him more and better than me. I would like just to say that I fully adhere to what I heard this morning when the previous speakers talked about Ambassador George Nene. But I would like to add something, because I had the opportunity, the honor, and the pleasure to know closely Ambassador George Nene. He was with very deep and sharp knowledge, with very sharp analysis. We had the opportunities to exchange on some matters and some issues. I was always impressed. He didn't use to talk too much. When we met as a group, he intervened generally at the end of the discussion with very clear and, as I said before, with sharp analysis and ideas. I noticed in our brother and comrade a very long experience in various aspects of life because of his own itinerary. Military resistance and struggle, political, and, as I said, as a diplomat. It is not in the life, it is not easy to find all these various experiences in one person. And Ambassador George Nene cumulated these various experiences of life, of struggle, of professionalism. I would like also to make a testimony about his humble character. We had several discussions. I had to tell him that I had a multilateral background. He never said that he was a very high professional and expert of multilateralism. But I noticed during the exchange that my brother and my comrade George Nene, he has such multilateral professional background. He never told me that he served at the UN in Geneva. He never told me that he served as deputy director of the multilateral department. It is one of the characters and criteria of what we call the humble person. They don't talk too much about their person, but they act, their words make you understanding that this friend, this brother, this comrade has that background. As I said, it is difficult to add on what had been said. I would like just to seize this opportunity to pay in front of you my sincere respect to Ambassador George Nene, that I consider having a privilege to meet him during my stay in this sisterly country to Algeria, South Africa. Thank you.
Naba two, ne? In, out. That's in affair. Shut up, in. Come, okay. Listen, come. And bye. Ba, 2, 4. Push me. Come.
Thank you very much, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. Give them another big round of applause. The Morris Isaacson Choir. We heard from Nene's diplomatic life. When Comrade Thabo Mbeki sent us to Holland and Germany in 1993, one day, so in Germany, every day we had this cabbage soup as a start, then mashed potato and pork, every day. So then George comes and says, it was called Villa Borsig. That's where the Chancellor of Germany is staying now. So he says, you know what? So he went to fetch the matron, says, Miss Barbara, sick and tired of your food. You can stay with your food. We're going to call our comrades from East Germany. They will cook for us. We don't want your food anymore. So ngiyayibona lento yokubhoboza amakomishwiti phuma kuphi. And poor Miss Barbara tried to beg and he was adamant. All of us says, Mar George says, we're not eating. And then later on, Miss Barbara put a tray of beers, a tray of water, and a tray of cold drinks outside, just to go snang. So George, he was also very stubborn, by the way. That's another quality that he had, was very, very, very stubborn. We will now call upon, we will be reading messages of support, and at this time I'll call upon Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma to read the message from the President. Ma'am Nkosazana.
Thank you, Program Director. Let me acknowledge the family, the children, the sisters, the partners, and the entire family of Nene. Let me also acknowledge Abo President Bamaloba, President Mbeki, no Sister Nele, no President Tatu Khalima, no Gugu. And let me acknowledge the ministers, the former ministers, members of the judiciary who are here, diplomats, but more importantly, the mourners who are here. And of course, my fellow alumni from University of Zululand. I'm going to read the message from the President. But before I do that, I just want to say that George, as we called him George after, when he was at Foreign Affairs, I used to tease him and say, George, you are no longer George after, you are now George before. Because he had lost his slim figure. But also one thing I want to say, he taught me a lot of diplomacy. When I became minister, I learned a lot from him and others, especially multilateralism. So he taught all of us. Here is the message from the President of the Republic, His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa. On behalf of the government and the people of South Africa, we wish again to convey our deepest sympathies to the family of Ambassador George Nene. As we return his mortal remains to the soil that he revered, may you find comfort in the knowledge that Ambassador Nene served his country with rare distinction all his life. He was an excellent diplomat for our country because throughout his life, he remained a teacher at heart. When his story is finally written, he will occupy a special place amongst African teachers who use the classroom as a laboratory for the revolution. When we return to Maurice Isaacson, the cradle of the Soweto uprising, we shall find a good teacher, hard at work, opening the eyes of his students to the possibility of a united, non-racial, non-sexist, and a just and prosperous society. History will record that when the savage regime mowed down his hope for a better tomorrow, the young learners during the Soweto uprising, he answered the call to go and to take up arms to fight the tyranny of racial oppression. When his gentle soul departed his body on the 6th of April, his death became a sharp reminder of the supreme sacrifice of his generation and that of Solomon Mahlangu, who was executed on the same day in 1979. His ultimate passing away reminded us of patriotic South Africans like him, who after our democratic breakthrough in 1994, went out to the world to be our country's ambassadors of hope. Now that we return his body to the soil that he loved and fought for, we dare not lose hope. We must find courage in him to continue his fight for the complete restoration of the dignity of our people. We must pick up his pen, his chalk, his spear, to deepen the gains of our freedom and to create a better life for all our people. And this we must do unswervingly and with passion, because in his life, our teacher and ambassador of hope never served as half-heartedly and never brought shame to his people. Go now, our teacher, our dear brother, as you journey to the land of our ancestors. We are sure you will find the mother of the nation waiting to embrace you. We are sure you will find a fellow traveler, a comrade in arms. We are sure from the heavens we will again hear the message of hope as you turn Radio Freedom on for the people to hear Madiba and Tambo say, "Let freedom reign. Hamba kahle mkhonto. Sithenjwa vezi ingoyi. Kodwa limnyama elihamba libali amaqhina namaqhakala." That is the message from the President of the Republic. Long live the undying spirit of George Nene, long live. Long live the undying spirit of George Nene, long live. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Sibonge Mama Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma ngalo mlayezo wakamongameli. We'll now call upon the children. I'm asked also to give your message. You can come up. I also want to acknowledge that we will not read all the messages. There's hundreds that the family have received. They kept them. They are going to be compiled into a book, but the family thanks each and every one of you who had sent messages of condolence throughout ever since you've heard of the passing of Babu Nene. Can I also ask the Mtetwa, the letter from the Mtetwa family, the representative of Mtetwa family to be ready to come?
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to read a letter from myself and my siblings. But before I do that, I'd like to share a memory with you all of George Nene from within the household, which will illustrate how patient of a man he was, what a great listener he was, and how he was a man of few words. I remember a time living in the same house, back when there was no extra view TV, where there was one central remote which would change the channel for all the TVs in the house. So, as you all know, George used to love CNN, which as kids was not our favorite show. So one time, I thought, hey, he's sleeping. This is a chance to change and watch something that we as kids wanted to watch. So amongst ourselves, we jostled to see who's going to be the one to take the remote and change. And just like today, I was the lucky one who was pushed to go do that. So I went, I got the remote, and I changed the channel to something that we wanted to watch. As I was tippy-toeing out, thinking I've succeeded, I realized that this man is listening even when he's sleeping. He clearly and concisely said with one word, which made me know I need to change the channel back. He said, "Hey!" That's all. Bab Dechang, the ultimate cool cat. A man of so few words, yet he honored every single one of those words he uttered. Amongst our friends, he was referred to as Mr. As that was often his response to an exuberant greeting from a quivering teenager. With few words, he gave us wisdom for us to lead and guide for generations to come. Unfettering and consistent wisdom of whose relevance will never die. As the nations grew to love him as a hard worker and resilient commander of the struggle, we grew to love him in a different capacity as a patient and loving father. Through his daily diligence to face life's challenges, he taught us to have courage to face life. Through his cool demeanor and ability to never let anything stress him, he taught us not to let the little things faze you. Maybe not even the big things. More importantly, through his ability to embrace 5 children who were not biologically his, he instilled in us a love and selflessness that knows no boundaries. His work and travels exposed us to the world. What a blessing to attend the ultimate university of life. Today, we're a unique blend of African and international exhibition. Bab Dechang, we thank you for that. We want you to know that our joy is greater, our love deeper, and our lives fuller because we shared it with you. We also would like to thank you for loving our mother. You taught us the true value of family, staying true to yourself and those around you. We know to stand for what we believe in with unwavering confidence in the manner that you did. We will carry your torch high and pray to have the liver to lead those around us with the same honor and dignity you exemplified. We continue to live through your grace, legacy, and impact on the world. And moreover, we will continue to live through you. You will continue to live through us, your family.
Thank you very much, Kwabakamtetwa, Unyambos, Sibongile. Can we have a musical item by Unandi while the girls are coming, the children are coming to pay tribute to their father?
Good morning. Dechang always said to me, and I thought I'm not actually prepared for today because I didn't think it would come so soon, but he did always say to me that, Nandi, the day I pass, all the singing and noise you're making in the house, you better go and do it at my funeral. So this is why I'm singing for him today. Back when I was a child, before life removed all the innocence, my father would lift me high and dance with my mother and me, and then spin me around till I fell asleep. Then up the stairs he would carry me, and I knew for sure I was loved. If I could get another chance, another walk, another dance with him, I'd play a song that would never ever end. How I love, love, love to dance with my father again. Me and my mother would disagree. To get my way, I would run from her to him. He'd make me laugh just to comfort me, then finally make me do just what my mother said. Later that night when I fell asleep, he'd put $1 under my sheet. Never thought that he would be gone from me. If I could get
Thank you very much, Nandi. We know it's not easy, but you tried your best. Thank you very much for that beautiful rendition. Let me now call upon Nandi Nontlantla to pay tribute to their dead.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of my cousins, Ulunga Nene and Nontlantla Nene, I will be reading their message. The message reads thus: Father, as we accept that indeed your time has come, we have decided to keep of you what we can: your memory, your lessons, and your love. In you, we have learned the value of integrity, a value that you never enforced but rather showed through continuous example. You always wanted us to know that who we are is enough, that imitating others was a waste of time, that as we are the wings that we seek. As your children, there are countless occasions where you introduce us to your friends and colleagues, many of whom are in this room today, and we wondered how and why our dad was acquainted with all of these influential people. We would ask ourselves, how does our father know this particular person, and why do they admire him so? Because around us you were the modest, you were a simple man, you were our father, the man who would make us hand him the remote even if he was closest to it. The man who allowed us to make our own mistakes and learn from them. The man who taught us that you do not have to be the loudest person in the room in order to make an impact. You were never boastful nor flashy. You always have been still yet strong and powerful. Umhlonishwa, they called you, and indeed you are. Now as women, we all know that you have given and sacrificed for a country that is now liberated. We will play our part in making sure that your fight is not in vain. Thank you for the lessons in humility and love. One of the most powerful lessons we have from you is your saying, the heart will always heal. It is the strongest muscle in the body. At that time, there was no consideration of our hearts dealing with the loss of you. Either way, with our pain, we salute you in every step we take. As we say goodbye, we promise the following: to keep your dreams alive, to keep your name alive, and to make you proud. Thank you for being the father that you were. Your love for us makes us stand tall, and we love you equally and boundlessly. Lala ngoxolo Tata Kalunga noNontlantla. Thank you for building us. I thank you.
Thank you very much to Lunga Ntlantla for that moving tribute to their dad, for what he has taught them to be, and pledging that they will never disappoint him, even as he has passed over. Can I now call upon Utozi Nene to come up and read the obituary? There was a request from some high commissioners and ambassadors to form a guard of honor. It is okay, you may do so. When we have with the Premier of Gauteng, Makura, we'll also have the PC, NEC, and others, ministers, whoever wants to form a guard of honor. And once again, acknowledging Stwalando Baba Mlangen. Thank you. We'll ask the orchestra to give us a humming. And after that, after the obituary, then you have an item. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to ask them to stand, or must I ask them?
May we all stand up. Thank you very much.
The life and times of Ambassador Sipho George Dekgang Nene. Born in Johannesburg in June on the 12th, 1948. On the evening of the 6th of April, 2018, a day we remember the hanging and killing of Solomon Kalushi Mahlangu by the apartheid regime 39 years ago. We learned of the passing of one of our great intellectuals, freedom fighter and consummate diplomat, Sipho George Dekgang Nene. Ambassador Nene was born and bred in White City, Soweto, the son of Evelyn and Abe Nene. He attended Ndondo Primary School and went on to complete his matric at Morris Isaacson in 1968. In 1970, he studied and completed a diploma in secondary school teachers course at the University of Zululand. It was at this university where he ended up joining and serving in the South African Student Organization. Ambassador Nene understood that to fight apartheid, education is an important weapon. He then returned to his alma mater, Morris Isaacson High School, wherein he taught and helped to organize the students who later became the leadership of the June 16, 1976 uprisings. As his level of political consciousness grew, and apartheid intensified its brutality and oppression of the people, it led him to join the African National Congress and Umkhonto weSizwe underground structures to fight against the apartheid system. He was instructed to leave the country and underwent military training in the then Soviet Union. After military training, he spent a brief spell as a military instructor in Benguela, Angola. He was then deployed to Maputo and Swaziland in the special operations. He was indeed a gallant fighter of Umkhonto weSizwe, June 16 detachment. He survived many attempts on his life and was detained in Swaziland. As a revolutionary, he continued to sharpen his intellectual and academic prowess and completed a diploma in political studies at the AUNSU Academy in Sofia, Bulgaria, as instructed by MK High Command. Through the ANC Department of Internal Affairs, he continued to amass knowledge and skills in working techniques of development, diplomacy in Germany, diplomacy in international trade in Norway, diplomacy today, skills, field and principles in France, and the conduct and practice of diplomacy in the United Kingdom, whereas he had acquired knowledge and experience in international relations. His commitment and dedication to the struggle led him to be appointed to serve as ANC Chief Representative and its Department of International Relations under the direct leadership and tutelage of Comrade President O.R. Tambo. Prior to the advent of freedom and democracy in 1994, he served as the African National Congress Chief Representative to Nigeria, also accredited to Ghana, Togo, and Benin. Hence, he ended up being the first South African High Commissioner to the Federal Republic of Nigeria post-1994. Upon his return to the country in 1990, he was kidnapped and briefly detained by the Askaris under the leadership of Eugene de Kock. At the behest of the then ANC President Nelson Mandela, he demanded his release as a sign of genuine commitment to the negotiations towards a democratic South Africa. Post-1994 elections, Ambassador Nene was appointed as the permanent representative of South Africa to the United Nations in Geneva. Upon his completion of his tour of duty, he became Deputy Director General, Multilateral Affairs. In recognition of his experience and knowledge of diplomacy and international relations, he was appointed as the Special Advisor to the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. He was the focal point member of the India-Brazil-South Africa Dialogue Forum, served as the South African Sherpa to the G20, a board member, United Nations Institute for Training and Research, and board member of the Central Emergency Response Fund before his retirement. In recognition of his experience, leadership qualities, and knowledge, Ambassador George Nene was elected as the first chairperson of the South African Association of Former Ambassadors, High Commissioners, and Chief Representatives. Ambassador Nene's understanding of the world, even during his retirement, participated in the team that led towards the election of Councillor Park Stow as the first African president of the United Cities and Local Government. As a veteran of the ANC, he participated in both the conceptualization and the formation of the MK National Council and stalwarts and veterans. Like many of his generation, they believed that the ANC must continue to be the leader of society, advance the cause of building a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, united and prosperous South Africa. Ambassador Nene loved his people. He was a loving father, an exceptional source of knowledge, wisdom, and happiness. He was devoted to his family and to the liberation and emancipation of South Africa's people from all forms of oppression and subjugation. The Nene family, his friends, and the entire movement have lost a great intellectual, a selfless revolutionary who put their lives of the people first. He served with distinction and diligence. He is survived by his children, Lunga and Nonhlanhla, and Usisdudu, Usisindongo. Rest in peace, Ambassador Nene. Ulale ngoxolo sithenjwa uMadlokovu sohlala sikhumbula. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Ionian Orchestra. We'll now call upon the Premier of Gauteng representing the people of Gauteng, Mr. David Makura. Premier, over to you.
Thank you very much to our program directors, to the family and friends of Ambassador George Nene, Seaparangwe, Isitwalandwe, Date and Rumlangeni, President Thabo Mbeki and Mrs. Zanele Mbeki, President Halima Mutlante and Mrs. Gugu Mutlante, all the many stalwarts and veterans of our struggle who are here to pay tribute and bid final farewell to Ambassador Nene, to ministers, deputy ministers and former ministers, ambassadors and high commissioners, leaders of the African National Congress at all levels, from national to province to the region, and the leadership of the Alliance, comrades, compatriots, fellow mourners. Today we have come together to bid a final farewell to a very special comrade, an outstanding patriot and an accomplished diplomat who served our country and our people with distinction. It is difficult to come to terms with this inescapable and devastatingly painful reality that Bra George, our teacher, our mentor, and the diplomat is no more. I would like to start by conveying our deepest condolences to the family and to say your loss is our loss. To all the community of comrades and colleagues of Bra George who are gathered here, it is both unfortunate and inevitable that as we bid farewell to our dear comrade, it is the reality that many more in the special generations of the most distinguished freedom fighters in our country are passing on. And bidding them farewell has become a painful but regular occurrence. We certainly know that death is something that we as human beings will never get used to. And the pain and anguish it imprints in our hearts and the solitude it leaves in our lives is quite incalculable. And yet, it is death that puts someone's life in true perspective. We can only appreciate the full meaning and beauty of life when this is examined in the context of how they have come to their final end. Both in revolution and in religion, life and death are intertwined and can only be understood in relation to one another. Whereas philosophers and apostles have agreed that death is inevitable, the fundamental question is not whether we shall die or not, but how we live our lives. That is, lives of purpose and the causes we serve when we live. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. says, it is the quality, not the longevity of life that is important. And Mark Twain says, let's endeavor to live so that when we come to die, even the undertaker will be sorry. Bertolt Brecht says, do not fear death so much, but rather the inadequacy of your own life. Jesus Christ is said to have advised his disciples that instead of crying for him, they must worry about how they are going to live their lives of purpose in order to make a difference. Bra George has given his entire life to the most sacred and most sublime of all human causes, and that is the liberation of humankind. I would like to say to his family and his children, as you go through this pain, just remember that he lived so that our country can be free. He has given more than 5 decades of his life to the struggle for freedom and the reconstruction of our country. He has dedicated his energy to building a better Africa and a better world. What more can we ask of a man or a woman than to sacrifice so that life and the world can be better? He was such a powerful and useful instrument of revolution that even the funeral undertaker is sorry today, as Mark Twain would have wished. He lived such an adequate, fulfilling, and purposeful life that Bertolt Brecht would have seen that there's no reason for fear of death. I have no doubt that the quality of his contribution to the many who are here and to the transformation of our own country is something both Jesus and Martin Luther King Jr. would have appreciated. As we mourn his passing, we have very good reason to celebrate his life of dedication and service to humanity. It is very easy at funerals to say we have come here to celebrate, but we're truly here to celebrate the contribution of Bra George to the liberation of our country. Ambassador Nene's passing is deeply saddening as it happens at a time when as a nation we are mourning the loss of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela and Dr. Zola Skweyiya. These were outstanding revolutionaries whose lives of purpose were dedicated to the transformation of our own country and the world in which we live. Bra George leaves us indeed in this month of April, and I want to say that April is a month of heroes, because, as has been said earlier on, it's the month in which Solomon Mahlangu has passed on, Chris Hani, Oliver Tambo, now Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, Dr. Zola Skweyiya, and Bra George. Of course, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated also in April. As the people of our province, we dip our revolutionary banner in honor of Bra George, the freedom fighter, the gallant fighter of Umkhonto weSizwe's June 16 detachment, the seasoned campaigner for international isolation of the apartheid regime, the teacher and the mentor. We salute him for flying high both our movement's and nation's flag in the international arena. And we convey our gratitude to his family. And it's on an occasion like this that we say to the family, we thank you for sharing him with us. We also thank Bra George himself for his contribution in crafting South Africa's foreign policy and for training and mentoring many, both new and young diplomats who are in our midst today. We are inspired by his role as a loving father to his children and as a family member. To us, the younger activists of the ANC and the broad democratic movement, he was an exceptional source of knowledge and wisdom. He was a man of impeccable integrity and superior intellect, but always with this humble demeanor. Those of us who are in government today must be seriously challenged to emulate his exemplary conduct as a committed civil servant to serve these people with characteristic honor, humility, and distinction. As a teacher here at Morris Isaacson, where we are today, Bra George groomed and inspired many young people who led the June 16 uprising. Perhaps Don Matera, our own luminary, had Bra George in mind and his children when he penned the poem, The Child, and I quote, "The leaves of the tree of my life grow brown and thin. Soon they will fall to earth and be forgotten. Much fruit has withered. Only a few strong boughs remain, but they too will be broken by the erosion of time. But all of my fruit, all things dear and close to my heart, was you and the hope manifest in your being, you the offsprings of the invincible dream. Yet all I ask of you is to remember me for what I tried to do, tried to offer, so that a new bright sun will rise on your day, that a portion of my dream for the freedom of my people will find a place in your song and in your dreams, that my name and those who marched with me would be recorded in your scrolls." Close quote. Yes, the leaves of the tree of Bra George's lives have grown brown and thin, and they have fallen to the earth. All the things dear and close to him, close to his heart, and a portion of his dreams for the freedom of his people have found a place, I hope, in the song and dreams of his children. And we, his comrades, Bra George's name and those of many others who marched with him have been recorded in the scroll of our history forever. He shall not be forgotten. To the family once again, and the relatives and the friends and the comrades and the colleagues in the diplomatic community, we would like to say, "Akwehlanga lungehlanga, hamba kahle mkhonto." Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Mr. David Makura, the Premier of Gauteng, who's also the acting chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, and also the co-president of the Metropoli, the conglomerate of more than 138 cities worldwide. Thank you very much for the moving tribute. Just want to make an announcement that there are buses that have been provided. There's 7 buses, and we are encouraged to use the buses instead of our individual cars. They are this side, they couldn't come, they are on my left-hand side. So we can use those buses to go there. And before I call President Khalima, I just want to also say that the procession will be led by the Gauteng traffic. It will be followed by the family, President Mbeki, President Motlanthe, and the Premier Makura, and then the rest of us will follow. But most of us will be in the buses. Without much waste of time, Your Excellency, President Khalima Motlanthe.
Thank you very much, Program Director. The Nene family, the relatives and friends of our comrade, Sipho George Nene, President Mbeki and Mrs. Mbeki, the Premier of Gauteng, Premier Makura, his wife, ministers and deputy ministers, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, and all members of the diplomatic corps, General
retired Spiwe Nyanda, the leadership of the African National Congress and the Tripartite Alliance, comrades and friends, ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply thankful for this opportunity and privilege to pay homage to Ambassador George Sipho Nene, as well as to convey my condolences to his family. The cadences of our lives give way to the inevitability of passing on into the spiritual realm at the conclusion of our mortal existences. Today we mourn one such transition of a father, brother, uncle, comrade, and dear friend. At this moment, our grief is collectively woven into mourning of the loss of Mam Nomzama Winifred Madikizela Mandela and Budzola Sydney Skweyiya. Such simultaneity is perhaps a reminder of the inextricably interconnected contributions made to realize the South African present. In the parlance of the struggle, we would refer to comrades George Nene, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and Zola Skweyiya as a unit. In the division of labor among them, Comrade Zola would be the commander, Comrade Winnie, the chief of staff, and Comrade George, the commissar. As this trinity of cadres of our struggle are given over to the domain of memory, we take custody of their legacy. We are commanded with writing and articulating them into history in modes that do justice to their contributions to the achievement of a liberated South Africa and the full breadth of their personhood. 2018 has been a particularly devastating year as we mourn the loss of Bra Hugh Masekela, Bra Willie Khositsile, and Ambassador Faith Radebe. That so many of our leaders are passing on within such a brief space of time serves as a painful reminder of the significant importance of archiving our history and the contributions of our struggle heroes. Upon the demise of the elderly, a proverb is often recited, likening their passing to the burning down of a library. These comrades held much information and experience with history locked in their bones and held in their blood. They were repositories of national memory. At 69 years old, Comrade George's premature departure, just short of the biblical declaration that the days of our years are 70 years and 10, is eclipsed by the profound impact he effected on interpersonal, organizational, and institutional structure of South African society. It is this significant contribution that we remember today. For there is no higher patriotic act that can be evidenced than the dedication of one's life to the achievement of liberation for all. Comrade George was one such patriot who devoted the substance of his years to our country. As Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. once wrote, and I quote, "When we were young, our hearts were filled with fire, and as life is action and passion, a man must share in the actions and passions of his time, at peril of being judged not to have lived at all, close quote. Comrade George answered the call of the liberation struggle of his time against the discrimination that pervaded the textures of life for people of color in apartheid South Africa. The lighting of such a revolutionary consciousness was sparked in an unlikely place, the Johannesburg City Council, where we worked together. During our time in the commercial department, managing bottle stores in Soweto, our closeness developed. Such work allowed the space and time to engage in political debates and discussions, given that we managed ourselves. Through such engagements, we reached a level of political awareness that led to us precautiously seek out the African National Congress. It was this awareness that persuaded Comrade George to enroll at the University of Zululand. He honed his political consciousness during this time on campus, going on to become a member of the South African Student Organization. Such consciousness would go on to define the contours of Comrade George's life, supplemented by a fundamental belief in the value of education. Comrade George innately understood what Comrade Moses Kotane eloquently articulated when he argued that, and I quote, "Education can be used as an instrument in the struggle for freedom and human progress," close quote. As such, education became his early vocation. Upon leaving university, Comrade George taught at his alma mater, the space within which we find ourselves today, Morris Isaacson High School. It was here that he was involved in conscientizing young minds on the significance of struggle politics. These young minds would later play a leading role in the June 16 uprisings as students protested the education policies of the apartheid state. He continued to educate youth even in the exile context, where he taught at the Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College in Tanzania, a school that was established for the children of our comrades in exile. Comrade George dedicated his life to the struggle, joining the African National Congress and Umkhonto weSizwe in the fight against white domination. It was during his tenure with MK that we formed a unit of the ANC underground struggle, complemented by the late Comrade Ngobi Zizwe Stan Nkosi and General retired Sphiwe Nyanda. Within this unit, we established a structure of recruitment and later received military training. We were subsequently directed to dismantle our recruitment structure by sending members into exile in order to later establish and train new sabotage units. This is how comrades such as the late Leseja Ngapa Krapis Sekhuale, Bobby Tsotsobe, General Sphiwe Nyanda, and Comrade George Nene, among many others who were part of this machinery, were sent into exile. The space and time allowed by working for the Johannesburg City Council, unwittingly supporting such efforts, as from time to time we had to visit Swaziland. Thus, we ferried people through Swaziland, working alongside many other comrades, including the late Ambassador and Principal of SOMAFCO, Uncle Tim Maseko, the late Stanley Mabizela and his wife, Comrade Duma, Comrade Albert Romo, Comrade Keith Mokwape, Comrade Thabo Mbeki, Comrade Jacob Zuma. Before our comrades could leave the country, our experience taught us that they needed a tactical mode to say their goodbyes. Thus, we had them write letters that we were tasked with delivering following their safe exit. There is a beautiful poem by Agostino Neto that encapsulates the message that was contained in such letters. And it reads as follows: My mother, O black mothers whose children have departed, you taught me to wait and hope, as you have done through the disastrous hours. But in me, life has killed that mysterious hope. I wait no more. It is I who am awaited. Hope is ourselves, your children, traveling towards a fate that fits life, close quote. Apartheid was a realm of the unimaginable made real, where families were separated for many reasons, one of these being the pursuit of a better future that at times demanded exile. Throughout his exile experience, Comrade George received military training, schooling in political theory, and training in the art of diplomacy that cumulatively provided the support structure for his valiant contribution to the realization of our democracy. His diplomatic service saw its genesis in the fight for freedom, where he served as the ANC chief rep to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Such a role providing a practical space within which he could apply land theory to reality, honing skills that would later become critical to his chosen vocation. Experience within the ANC structures would see its apex in Comrade George's extended service as a career diplomat. As freedom dawned, he entered the public service, working in the Department of International Relations and Cooperation from 1994 until his retirement a mere 2 years ago. As the first High Commissioner to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and later serving as the permanent representative of South Africa to the multilateral institutions of the United Nations in Geneva, Comrade George was a critical part of the establishment of the post-apartheid South African Diplomatic Corps. He led the avant-garde that forged a new path in our relations with the international community. Such service did not rest at retirement, however. For comrades such as George Nene, it is in their character that they are not defined by time and occupation, and therefore the contours of their contribution to the country never change. Comrade Nene took up a position as the chairman of the South African Association of Former Ambassadors following his official service with a view to posterity. He evidently believed in and practiced the importance of establishing an institutional legacy. The veteran diplomat was consistently willing to lend his wide-ranging expertise to our continually developing foreign policy and diplomatic community. He was a regular attendee of the African National Congress National Executive Committee meetings of the Subcommittee on International Relations. Additionally, he continued to organize seminars and roundtable discussions with young people here in Soweto, whose lives took the shape of the words of Agostinho Neto when he writes, and I quote, "Your children who hunger, who thirst, who are ashamed to call you mother, who are afraid to cross the streets, who are afraid of men," close quote. In the face of such challenging realities, Comrade George responded by living a life of service. Consequently, his legacy is today characterized by servant leadership, ethical conduct, and loyalty. Within the political arena, his passing is keenly felt, as very few can fill his shoes. Over the years, Comrade George consistently evidenced a nuanced comprehension of the Republic of South Africa, developing a profoundly deep knowledge of South Africa's place in the world that was the result of wide-ranging experience and acute intelligence. In his quiet way, he had an uncanny skill for interpreting world affairs and understanding the language and contents of official documents. His passing robs us all of those deep insights of value and significance. In today's world, he would have been eager to explain where all those so-called rebels in Syria were being bussed to remark on the disintegration of Libya and map the impact of Brexit, among many other situations of significance. Comrade George would continuously be called on in both official and unofficial capacities to provide insight on the complexities of global affairs. Such a singular, deep understanding of geopolitics leaves a profound gap in the political community, in addition to the multiple other chasms left in the wake of his untimely passing. As we collectively mourn, I invite us all to take refuge in the words of another comrade who departed the living realm this year. On the elegance of memory, Brawili Georapetse Khositsile writes, quote, "There are memories between us deeper than grief," close quote. And as I conclude, I return to the latter part of Agostinho Neto's poem, and he writes, "Hope is ourselves. It is ourselves, the hope of life recovered," close quote. Comrade Nene stands among many who carved rich lives in the face of devastating conditions. He found hope within, with an unwavering belief in our humanity and the moral foundations of our liberation struggle. Comrade Nene's life was fruitful, significant, and abundantly full. His memory will undoubtedly live on. And to his children, their mothers, his sister, the rest of the family, we say, take solace in the knowledge that your loss is our loss as well. May his soul rest in peace. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. As we prepare to leave, I would like to call upon Uphilisile Mlambo to come and render a solo. It was requested by the family, if she's here. And just to remind you once again that the buses are on the other side, next to the daycare. we're all encouraged to use the buses. And when we leave this hall, the pallbearers will be General Sphiwe Nyanda, Ambassador Welile Nhlapo, President Khalima Motlanthe, President Thabo Mbeki, Premier David Makura, and Councillor Parkstow, that order that will take him through the red carpet to the hearse. I think, is Phyllis Ukon? Oh. Yes. Just a quick one, sis, and then we'll call upon Reverend Nomsano Mqolo for a sermon. We are already behind time. Thank you very much. Thank you for being a good audience.
When peace like a river attended my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, oh, whatever, my Lord, thou hast taught me to say, it is well, it is well with my soul. When peace like a river attended my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, oh, whatever, my Lord, thou hast taught me to say, it is well, it is well with my soul, it is well, it is well with my soul, with my soul, it is well, it is well with my soul, it is well, it is well with my soul, with my soul, it is well, my soul, it is well, it is well with my soul, whatever, my Lord, whatever, my Lord, thou hast taught me to say, it is well, it is well with my soul.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Let me take this opportunity and say to the leadership, I will take the protocol that has been established and say, oh, protocol observed. Greetings in the name of Jesus Christ. Uba untlapho uthe, as South Africans, we are lazy for protocols and they are join under that. I think I like that. And just to say the power of imagination as I sit there, my presidents, the power of imagination as we come to bury Upu George Nene as an ambassador. I'm imagining myself as one of the ambassadors. So if there's any opportunity, you can employ me. I'm ready to go. We will continue with our services. Time is already out by singing Bulelani kuYehova kuba elungile kuba ububele bakhe bungunaphakade. Ukuthemba uYehova. Ukuthemba uYehova. Nokuphepha ngaye. Kuko okulungileyo. Thenjwa on behalf of the white city community, just to say to us, Upu George was an institution of knowledge. He was a well where we could drink from. And we say on behalf of the community of Jabavu, may his soul rest in peace. The scripture that I'll be using this morning, 1 Corinthians, I'll just use one verse. 1 Corinthians, chapter 16, verses 11b. 1 Corinthians, chapter 16, verse 11b. It reads thus: send him on his way in peace, so that he may return to me. I am expecting him along with the brothers. And this is the word of God. Let us pray. Wanguthixo kokhokho bethu, wanguthixo kubazali bethu, wanguthixo kuthi, wanguthixo nakwanene. Silapha Nkosi ngalentsasa namhlanje, sizothi bye bye kusicaka sakho. Hlisela umbethe wentsikelelo yakho, makuthi amazwi azawuwe emlomeni wami, ibe ngamazwi azawuthuthuzela lenginginya. Sicela oko ngoKristu Inkosi yethu. Amen. The verse that I'm going to use is that one which says, send him on his way. That's the NIV version. The English Standard Version says, help him on his way in peace. Mphelekeleni ke nixolile. Uthi ukuze eze kuba ndimlindile kunye nabazalwane. When we come to bid somebody farewell, it is sad, but it is also a good time to say goodbye to one of us. And as I've already alluded to the fact that he was a shining star in White City. Sathi nathi nawe White City umncinane kangaka kwavela umuntu sabangabantu phakathi kwabantu. Ngesizulu kusithiwa zolala izinsizwa kosala izibongo. Silapha nje because sidlula ebomini. Silapha nje because ile nginginya abanye bahambile. Ndivile xa kuthethwa when they were speaking here, they speak about June 16 detachment. And I was asking umfundisi Carol Jack, what does that mean? And she explains, and I said, then it means some of us are June 16 attachment. To the Nene family, our condolences. Si acknowledge pain yenu, sithi akwehlanga lungehliyo. Sithi ngxe khaya lonke isihlobo nezalamani ingakumbi abantwana. Sithi kumbutho wesizwe xa izithonga zivela ngapha nangapha from all angles at this time. Already it has been alluded to that. I'm no more going to mention those people. I just want to say each time, it means every year as you celebrate those who have passed on, it will be a combo reflection. It will be a combo celebration. And may God carry you. And remember that it started with God. And he equipped you so that you could liberate his people and give justice to his people. George reminds me when Philip Yancey asked a question in his book, where is God when it hurts? And I want to say the family is asking that question, and also Nombuto Wesizwe maybe is asking that question, where is God when it hurts? Philip Yancey has an answer to that, and he says, God is in us. He is not in the things that hurt us. And so noma zisiza intolo, noma zisiza inchaba, God is with us. God is in us. He's not in the things that make us to feel the pain. And maybe as people look, they would say, why so many deaths at the same time? Is it the end of Umbuto? No. God had said, I will never forsake you. I will never leave you. And so when you are clinging to God, God is going to give you the strength to stand up. Even within those differences that are there, God is going to unite you and give you strength that when other people look at you, they will see you as Lombuto Wesizwe, walking tall, chest out, stomach in, and walking straight. Only if you remember that God is always present and abantu bakathixo at all times. Send him in peace. Mkhululeni ahambe. Mphelekeleni nixolile. The history has been said, the history has been shared, and we've taken parts from his journey that we think will continue to cherish. But pain, if it is going to end up being a positive and not a negative experience, it must be processed. The same way that Jesus did when he heard that Lazarus had died. John 11, verse 35 says Jesus wept. And maybe that is the space that God is giving you as a family. And I want to say, as isizwe, that we come to a place of mourning and remember who we are in the eyes of God and go back to God. Our God is an interesting God. He's a God that weeps with us. Trevor Hudson says, when we come, as this death has occurred, we come as wailing walls to the family. We cannot take your pain, but we come so that we support you and so that as you stand up, you remember where you come from. This is but one step that everybody has to take. It is only one step between me and death, and between you and death. Unfortunately, it is a certain step, very sure each and every one of us is supposed to take. At times, it is a solitary step. Maybe that's how we look at it. But Kubler-Ross in his book says, when a person is ready to leave this world, there is always somebody from the other world who assists the person to cross over. I've heard people testifying and saying, those who have gone before, they have already assisted him to cross over. It is because God has said to us in the book of Hebrews, "Belele nje bayathetha." We do not understand the theology that our parents who have taught us who God is, when they die, we then now call them demons. I do not understand that theology. I do not subscribe to that. That is why I remind you of Hebrews that says, "Belele nje bayathetha. Belele nje abekhaya bayathetha. Belele nje abombutho bayathetha." And it is up to those who are still on this side to listen. What is the message that those who have gone are saying? Death is a final step on this earth, because as Christians we know that there is life beyond this earth. Noba indlu okanye idokodo lalapha lidilika, siyazi uba sinesakhiwo esibhetere kunesi. Even if we never lived in a big house, you know that the house that is beyond, it is a house where we are all equals, where we eat the same menu and we play the same music. Send him in peace. Mpelekeleni nixolile, molokuleng atsamaye ka kgotso. Whatever you've inherited from his life, cherish it. His character, we are reminded here. He was a person of integrity. We are told that he was a doer, a good listener. We are told that he was a hard worker. And we will be watching and looking at our leaders, whether is there something that they've taken that they will always going to impart to the others. Ukuze isihomo nesithozela sikaThixo ngokudala umuntu wakhe in his own image goes back emntwini wakhe. We are told he was competent because he excelled as an ambassador. We are told he was courageous. We are told he was committed. Under all odds, he continued on this journey. He had compassion. He had love for humanity. And I want to remind people who are there in different places, in different corners, who are leading us also, that remember the passion and the compassion that you had when you said, I will do this work, so that you always remain on your calling. In this scripture, Paul had hoped to spend some time with the Corinthians. But in this scripture, if you read it, he says, if God permits. And I want to say to the Nene family also, you had hoped in the midst of sickness that was there, but you had hoped that you will spend some more time with him. But because it is God who's in charge, and when God sees that the spirit and the flesh are no more in congruency, then God takes his spirit and let the person rest. And that is what has happened. And so Paul, as he was concerned about Timothy, he was concerned because he was his spiritual son. And he was worried whether he will be taken care of properly. He knew that as Paul, he had done the training. And so he was free to go and do the work. But he says to them, just do me one thing. Send him in peace, because I am waiting for him. And I hear these words as if God is saying that, send him in peace. He has done his part. He needs to rest. Send him to me.
because umzamo omhle uwenzile. What is waiting ukuba fumaneni umqhaka wakhe ukuze azukiswe na. After all this crisis, family and community and umbutho, after all this crisis, the crisis doesn't make a person, we are told. One author says that. He says it reveals what a person is made of. When people are thinking that they are writing it off, it is up to you to lift up the banner, because God's grace is still sufficient, even in dark times like this. Uba unene, as a well where we drank from, as a well where everybody who needed information. That's how sikhabule ngolo hlobo in 76. Abantwana, we were saying as we were looking at these kids when we were wearing those uniforms, we were very besizingudu. Do you remember? But did you look at them? Things have changed. Thina sasizingudu kwasinxiba le uniform, but bona bancinci ngoku. So things have changed, things are evolving. And these, our leaders. And I want to say thank you also to the family and Umbuto that you have allowed Ubu George to also go out of his roots from where he was born and bred in White City. Because we have a disease now where as human beings we do not want to be associated with the places where we come from. And we forget that Jesus himself did not have a place. He was born in a pigsty. And therefore he arose from there and became the person that he was. That is why we can stand here firm and say he has risen. And also, as a community, we will rise. It has been a test of times, but God is on our side. I normally see people when they want to cry. You see them most of the time, they cry at airport. If you go and sit at airport, nobody will ask you why you are crying. Even if you have your own stress from home, just want to cry, just go and sit at airport. Or alternatively, if it's too far, just go to the cemetery and just cry. Nobody will ask you anything, because people attach those things with the tears. They say, oh, he has lost a loved one. Kanti sometimes it's when we have just stress and we go there. But on a serious note, Bantwana baka George, when you miss him, don't be ashamed to go to the cemetery where he will be resting. You are not going to worship him, but you are going to remember him, because it is God who has created. And our parents taught us who God is. And how can we say they are demons when they are dead? We cannot afford to say that. We believe as they are dead, they are also talking. uThixo anisikelele, uThixo anithamsanqelise. Sekuthi xa siphuma apha kube nezinto ezintsha ezizakwenzeka, because the scripture says the seed has to die so that new spring must come out. Mabahambe bonke no Mama Winnie, no Tatu Square, bonke no Pangamens Japan, bayoba zizitshalo ezintsha ezizawuntshulisa isizwe sethu. Nkosi yoxolo mayithamsanqelise ngoKristu inkosi yethu. Amen. Let us pray. UnguThixo ngamaxesha onke. Awusidanisi wena. Ngamaxesha onke usoloku usenzela izinto ezingumangaliso. Xa simkhulula uba ahambe ngoxolo, sithi ikhaya lakhe malifihlwe nguwe Thixo. Nanku nombutho wakhe, sithi mayibe nguwe Nkosontshulayo phakathi kwawo. Kuthi izithonga nezivunguvungu nezitshingitshane eziphakamayo ibe nguwe Thixo ozilalisayo, because kakade wawungusisizalo sawo lombutho kwasekuqaleni njengoThixo. Sisondeza isizwe sonke ngeli xesha elibuhlungu kangaka. Xa sitywizisa inyembezi, we remember that you've said you will never forsake us. And so as we weep, we know that we are weeping with you. We know that as we go through the fires, you are there jogging with us in the fire. And we thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen.